Our next guest is Chris Jochum. He serves as the professor and chair of the Department of Teacher Education at Fort Hays State University, where he leads a large teacher preparation program serving on campus and virtual students across the country. Jochum's previous professional appointments include the University of Nebraska at Kearney as an associate professor of foreign language education and Spanish, the University of Central Missouri as an assistant professor of secondary education, Salina High School South in Kansas as a secondary Spanish teacher and chair of world languages, and Kearney Public Schools in Nebraska as a K-12 English as a second language teacher. Dr. Jochum is the author of the Department Chair, A Practical Guide to Effective Leadership, and serves as a co-chair of the advisory board for the Academic Chairpersons Conference, where he's also one of the facilitators for the New Chair Alliance. He was recently elected as a commissioner for the Association for Advancing Quality in Educator Preparation, AAQEP, and was one of the founding directors of the National Center for Clinical Practice in Educator Preparation. Welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Well, Dana, thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to be on here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, tell me about a time when you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about that, listening to your podcast. First of all, I will say, having started my career in K-12 and now that I train teachers, those of you that are still in the trenches of education, doing it 180 some days a year, my hat goes off to you. And so thank you. I would say, and I don't know if this is maybe a little different approach, Dana, but as a leader, in some ways, I feel like every day I have the opportunity or the choice to decide to crawl out of some type of trench. Maybe that is my own negative attitude. Maybe I'm making an assumption about a conflict I have coming up. And so, really, that's how I would answer it as I sit here today, is success is defined daily, not in a day. And those of us that influence others, which classroom teachers do more than anyone, I think in some ways we have a choice every day to crawl out of the trenches, and choose our attitude, choose our response, and choose how we serve others.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, right? Because there's things that come up on the daily, and it's how you react to the situation. Like you said, as we're recording, it's the end of the semester, and you are bracing yourself for, students who might react to the grade they got in their course. So that's, it's
Yeah.
we know kind of what to expect at the end of the semester, but it's also, just coming off as, not letting it get you in the trench as well. So I mentioned in the bio, you wrote the book, The Department Chair, A Practical Guide to Effective Leadership. Does this apply to mostly people who are working at the college level?
I would say yes, and I mean, first of all, leadership is leadership, and I've been a student of leadership for a number of years. Been fortunate to have some really great mentors. Foundationally, if you are in education, the closer you are to the students, the closer you fit the description of a full-time leader because of your influence. So I did it started because as I transitioned into a formal or titled leadership role as chair almost 9 years ago now, I realized that it's similar to those of us that have had children. You think you can prepare and know what to expect, and then before you get them home from the hospital, most of that goes out the window. And I found that in my own chair job. So I ended up writing that book a few years ago because we write the books that we wish we had, and I wrote that as a kind of a synthesis of what I wish I would have known, and then maybe some advice to those down the road. But in general, it's really for those who are leading from the middle. It's that book is housed in higher education from a chair perspective, but the foundation of that is certainly my leadership philosophy, and I would say it's applicable certainly to any educational leader, but even beyond.
Hmm. And you are currently in the process of writing another book, which is um, being published with Road to Awesome. And it's on teacher leadership. There is no title yet for the book, but talk to me a little bit about the conception for that book and also when you think that will be coming out.
All right. Well, and I appreciate the opportunity, Dana. I hope, as we know, publishing schedules, sometimes can take a little longer and there's many variables, but I think that sometime the middle or second half of 2025, it should be in print or available for digital download if you read books that way. The impetus for that book, a couple things, is about 5 years ago, I started teaching almost by accident a special honors course for our teacher education honors program, where I currently serve as the chair. And I was in the middle of researching my leadership book for department chairs. And I came across, I knew there's research out there to support teacher leadership, but like most people in the field, I will admit, I was normal in that I had uh, an incorrect misconception about it, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so I decided to challenge myself. The best way to learn something, as you know, and a lot of the listeners know, is to teach it. And so I took the opportunity to teach that one-off class as teacher leadership, and then I ended up some practicing teachers wanted that, and so I started doing it in the summer as an online course. And before too long, I started developing a curriculum based upon my research and my thoughts. And so finally, I decided, at the request of students and practicing teachers, to put that in a book, because what I have found is that if approached correctly, it is more of a mindset. It is a culture that a school adopts, and it's a way of not adding one more thing. It's not like, oh, that's what we do at the October in service. Teacher leadership
Yeah.
does not mean teachers leave the classroom, but it's a way of establishing a culture and climate and core values in a district that empowers them to do those things both inside their classroom, in their school, in their district, and in their community. So, in a nutshell, that was the impetus for that book, and very very excited to get that out and in people's hands, and hopefully it'll serve them and those that they serve.
And did you have a working title that you think you might be using for that book
Yeah,
yet?
yeah. I'm leaning towards you don't have to leave to lead,
Yep.
retaining teachers by developing leaders.
Okay. Okay.
And because we know, going back 40 some years, the research on teacher leadership and adopting that mindset and culture, all of the things that we want to do in education, increase student achievement, faculty, staff retention, morale, etc. I'm not saying it's a cure-all or a panacea, because it isn't, but it's one of the things that I think is oftentimes overlooked, that we know can move the needle, at least in those areas that we all want to focus on.
Yeah, and I think there aren't enough teachers that kind of take that plunge into department leadership, right? Some of them look at admin and they go directly from a teacher to an admin type position, but not necessarily as a department leader. So having worked at K-12 and now at the university level, yeah, that will be a good book to read when that comes out. In terms of just like you don't have you can stay in the building, you can stay in your role, but be a leader in that space. So you also host a podcast called the Department Chair Leadership Podcast. So talk to me a little bit about how long you've hosted it and kind of what kind of type of conversations that you have on that.
Well, again, maybe like my teacher leadership book, it started. I didn't necessarily just wake up one day and say I'm going to do a podcast. It really started because um, there's not a lot out there, as much as you would think, I should say, in terms of
Yeah.
training um, higher ed leaders. And a lot of times that gateway position is the chair job. And I know personally, I've learned so much from podcasts, both in and outside of education, professional development, personal development. And so it really started as me hoping maybe a few people that aren't related to me might actually listen to it and I could add value to them. And so I've had it over a year now, and it really spans what we say in education, that pre-K through 16, right? So
Okay.
it's the K-12 space, the higher ed. I try to have people on there that are either leaders in higher education, K-12 leaders, or prominent leaders in industry. More and more, I've been fortunate to have some of those guests on. And so my goal for that initially was those that are in an educational leadership position. Hopefully, they'll learn that we need to expand, kind of cast a wide net. And the way we develop ourselves as leaders is, and teachers know this, right? Is you sample from different places, you borrow things. So that's why I started it, and I've been fortunate to have some great guests on there, and fortunate to receive some positive feedback. And so I do think it's adding value, as you know. It is work to produce those and get those out. But it's a new skill that I learned from the technical side, and I hope to keep doing it, and would certainly encourage your listeners to check it out and shoot me some feedback if you have suggestions or comments.
And how often do you publish episodes?
Typically, every other week.
Okay.
During the past summer break, I went to a month, and then as the school year started going again, I was moved back. With my schedule, it varies, but I try to either go every other week or once a month. It's always on a Tuesday, though, if you're curious, is when the new episode will drop.
Okay. And is it you solo or do you interview?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I interview people, so I have a couple. I mix it up. Early on, I had more solo podcasts just to talk about my background. It was initially based on the book and why to become a chair. But as it's grown, I've probably had more guests than I have solo podcasts. But I do think as we move through the year, and certainly as the teacher leadership book comes out, I have some ideas and plans for mixing it up with some solo, I guess solo podcasts, if that's the word, as well. So I try to have a combination.
And you also do speaking engagements. So talk to me a little bit first about how you might speak to people who are in the world language field. You said that you were a methods teacher, also one of the courses that you have taught. So for people who are kind of in the same background as me with world languages, what would you be able to speak to groups on?
Yeah, well, and thank you. When we first connected, I didn't realize we had that in common, and so as we all know in the world of teaching, we all have our first love, and mine is always will be foreign language. I taught ESL in foreign language, and as those people in that world preaching to the choir here know, once you get the language bug. And the travel bug, and just know how you can help other people and connect with humans because of another language, it sticks with you. And so for 8 years, I was very fortunate to serve as a methods professor. So after spending time in K-12 as a Spanish teacher, as an ESL teacher, I taught teachers. And I see a lot of similarities, a lot of benefits. Those of us that are in foreign language education, that understand what it means to advocate, that understand what it means, we understand what it means to have not just a curriculum, but a program. Because as you know, effective foreign language teachers, you're most likely you're coordinating study of travel abroad. You might be pursuing the international baccalaureate, probably recruiting, working with your feeder school. They are very well prepared to be leaders in and outside of the classroom because of their inherent training and advocacy. And in terms of that space, and I appreciate you asking, I would be very comfortable, and I think it's very applicable to work with those in the foreign language world on um, how can we maximize our influence? How can we take what we do in the classroom and maximize that as maybe we'll say teacher leader advocates? How can we work with community members, make connections in industry, show that foreign language is more than grammar, verb charts, and those things that maybe some people think it is. And in addition to that, I would say things that I've done in other spaces, helping people identify their core values through a culture climate work, developing core mission statements, even how to comfortably address conflict. We all have to do that, and that comes up in the life of every leader. But certainly, those of us in foreign language have probably had unique forms of conflict, be it with students, colleagues, community members, and so those are some of the things, Dana, that I would really be excited to share with those in the foreign language education world.
Yeah, and it's great to connect. Like we talked during the pre-chat, just knowing somebody in a neighboring state, right, that has that
Mhm.
background, and being very active myself in the organization here in Colorado. So, um, you have mentioned also that you take students to Costa Rica every year. So, talk a little bit about that program.
Well, again, many years ago, probably more than I'd like to admit, when I was able to first study abroad as a Spanish education major, to say that it significantly changed my life would be an understatement. And so I've always been committed to offering students that throughout my career. And when I made the change from my previous university where I taught Spanish courses, I also taught, as I said before, methods. There, I would take students primarily to develop language proficiency. So we would stay a little bit longer in the summer. And in my new job, obviously that's not the goal, but nonetheless, we for the last few summers now, a colleague of mine, we've co-sponsored a trip where we primarily take our undergraduate majors, our future teachers, and we take them and first of all, we spend about a week going to a language school in Costa Rica, not because they need to learn Spanish, but we want them to develop that cultural proficiency. And quite frankly, we want them to know what it's like to study as a language learner. And even though that's just a brief glimpse into what maybe some of their second language learning ELL kiddos will face, I can tell you from having done it is truly transformative. And so they will study in a language school, spend time with or live with the host family. We take a day and tour one or two schools in Costa Rica, and it's just a great experience. And I never get tired of seeing them go through that process, even though I've been to the country many times. And as I told you in our previous chat, I believe in being efficient and standing at the intersection of what we're passionate about. And so I'm passionate about taking people abroad and passionate about training leaders. So in 2025, we're going to roll out a teacher leadership workshop as part of our 10-day study abroad to Costa Rica. And we already have some interest in that and hope to do it in coming years. So if listeners have questions about that, they can certainly reach out and contact me. But that's what I've been doing in the time I've been at Fort Hays State University is getting those teachers and some practicing teachers abroad to just develop that cultural proficiency and understand what it's like to really be in another country, in a desk, in a classroom, surrounded by a language and culture that certainly are not familiar and native to you, and that process that we all go through, because we all know that's going to make them even better and more empathetic teachers.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a great program to, send teachers of any subject during that prep program, right? Because they're going to inevitably have students from other countries, and just even to have that week experience, right? You said living with a host family and experiencing the culture, and just getting that view of how it is for those students in their classes. Where can people connect with you? You said they can reach out to you if they're interested in finding out more about your program, or looking at just different things that you do, and also perhaps finding out more about you coming and speaking to world language teachers.
Well, the easiest way is just go to my website, which is cjleadership.com. And that will have active links to my podcast. It'll have testimonials from some of my common presentations, trainings. You will also be able to, there's a tab that says connect with Chris. You fill that out. It will send me an email. Or you could just email me, Chris at cjleadership.com. And yeah, like you said, certainly in the foreign language world, I would really, really be honored if our listeners in their school or their admin or maybe foreign language organization groups wanted to talk about how I could work with your group, either through consulting, through workshops. Last when we started the 24-25 school year, I was able to do some district-wide PD with some school districts here in Western Kansas. Really enjoyed that. And so I would just put that out there that I would love to connect and learn more about you and your school and maybe some ways we could work together to ultimately help those that serve the students.
Great, great. Well, we've had a great conversation discussing kind of your background, your book that's already published, and
Mhm.
also the upcoming book, and just a little bit about teacher leadership and your philosophy around, having people just use some of those qualities within their role. Out of everything we've talked about, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
One thing to leave them with as we end is is to always be curious and always try to keep that what I call creative tension. It doesn't minimize the struggles we go through. Certainly, as K-12 teachers, it doesn't mean the work is any less hard. But I do think, and I've had to learn this myself, is if we can just continue to focus on what's positive and always pat ourselves on the back, take a break, take care of ourselves, but also at the same time always be just curious enough to see what's around the corner. What can I enhance? What can I do? Because certainly as educators, when we improve ourselves, we also improve those we serve.
Yeah, that's great to remember. Well, thank you so much for being my guest on the Out of the Trenches podcast today. It was a pleasure.
Well, likewise, thank you, and I appreciate your listeners for listening in.